Healthy love. Healthy love. What is the way I can healthily love myself around food? I'm 57 years old, but 24 years ago I used to weigh 50 pounds more than I did. I used to weigh 187.5, and this morning I weighed 137.5. I've lost 50 pounds and I've kept it off for 24 years. That's an example of me loving myself. And that's important because I hate being fat. You know, they say thin ain't well, but I got news for you. Fat sure ain't well. I live in San Francisco. We have the lowest body mass index of any city in the entire world. But that's not true of the rest of America. East of our city, for 2,500 miles, 2 out of 3 people in America are overweight, and 1 out of 3 are morbidly obese, which means they're ready to drop dead at any second. And I don't want to be one of those people. That doesn't look like healthy love to me. For me. You can take what you can use and leave the rest. So what did I do about that? Because I was tired of being fat. When I was fat, I would walk up steps and my heart would go. The skin between my legs would rub together. I had unknown aches and pains. I felt shame about my body. It ruined my sex life. I didn't want anybody to see me naked. It was horrifying. I had self-loathing and self-hatred. I didn't want that to be that way, and I couldn't stop. But I finally did. And one of the ways I did it was I gave up sugar. I gave up sugar. My first wife and I, and by the time I get to my 5th wife, I realized it may not be them. My first wife and I had candy bars this big that you get at the counter right as you leave the Walgreens. And we just break them in 2, and that was our dessert. If you keep doing that, you know what happens? You get fat. Fat is a dangerous word. You know the worst thing you can call a man? A loser. You know the worst thing you can call a woman? Fat. That's the kiss of death. But you know, it's bad for my self-esteem too. I don't want to be fat. And so the first thing I did was give up sugar. And you know what happened? I started feeling all kinds of feelings. I started to feel angry. I started to feel needy. I started to feel sad. I started to feel frightened. And all the reasons that I was eating those sugars started coming back up. So I had to get some healthy friends around me to talk to walk through those sets of feelings. But I did. I gave up sugar. And it worked for me. And I've been thin for 24 years. I know what it was like to be fat. I was fat for 11 years. And I ain't never going back to that again. That ain't going to happen on my shift. So I gave up sugar. And I think to myself, look, you want the sweets of sugar or you want to be fat? I can do that. I can let it go. So for healthily loving myself, that's one of the things, like the gift I gave to myself. The way a father would give a son something, a child, he would give him something good. I raised my daughter by myself, and I gave her good gifts so that she would feel loved and cared about. But what I do now is I do that for myself. I love myself as a father would love a child. And I gave myself the gift of abstinence from sugar, so I don't have to be fat. But that's not all. There was a really bright man many, many years ago, and he used to talk about feelings being so important to connect up, and I heard him. I could really hear what he was saying. And I wanted to be a good father, and I wanted to be a good friend, and I wanted to be a good partner, and I wanted to be a good teacher. And so I wanted to have feelings to express myself and be connected to people so that I could love them and they could love me. And this crazy man said, if you want to get in touch with your feelings, give up red meat. And I thought, as I always think when somebody's got a better idea than me, this guy's crazy. But I thought, when I got divorced the first time, why don't, instead of going crazy like most of us guys do, instead of going crazy, why don't we go the other direction just for variety? And so I did. And so instead of chasing women and getting drunk and taking drugs and all the stuff that we always do, that, you know, when you get divorced, I went the other way. I said, why don't you give up red meat and see if you can get in touch with your feelings? And sure enough, I did. I could feel more. It was remarkable. And I got to tell you, I like steak. Steak is actually my favorite food. I grew up on a cattle farm, a 112-acre cattle farm in Virginia. Beautiful country. So we brought 60 head of cattle every year to slaughter. So I'm not an animal rights activist. I'm not. I am is someone who believes in the gospel of feelings. That's what I believe in, because I want to love you and I want you to love me, and I've got to be able to feel that. And if I'm doing something that impedes that, I'm willing to at least try to let it go. And so I let go of red meat. And after about 4.5 months, I thought to myself, you know, I'm not eating sugar, I'm not eating red meat, you know. And then I thought, what if we gave up white meat? And so I gave up chicken and turkey. I still kept fish. I gave up pork too. And sure enough, I could feel more. It was unbelievable. I was more alive. And I had the medium of exchange to love myself. I could tell myself how I was feeling. I knew how I was feeling. And then I could respond in a healthful, healthy way. And then something remarkable happened. I began to notice how my body looked when I felt certain ways, like when I felt sad, or angry, or needy, or not frightened, or needy, or something like that. I could feel it, and I could see my body doing that when I was feeling those feelings. And then, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out. You can look at other people's bodies, and you can see them doing the same thing, and you know how they feel. Now that's a remarkable insight. The capacity to know how another person feels. And you know what's weird about it? A lot of times they don't know. But I am capable of recognizing their body when it feels sad, hurt, and angry because I've noticed it in mine. And now I can communicate with them. Someone's feeling frightened. They may not know. I said, why are you feeling frightened? Somebody's feeling angry. Why are you feeling angry? And then I can connect with them. So that's a small, pork and chicken, that's a small price to pay to be able to see into a human being, to connect with, for me. Don't get me started. A guy came up to me about 8 months into this process. He was a studio singer I would hire in my recording studio. And he came up to me and said, I've learned a way to sing better. And I said, well, how is that? And he said, give up dairy and eggs. And of course I thought he was crazy. But I tried it. And at the time I didn't know that eggs weren't part of dairy. I just didn't know anything about food. What did I know? And so I just gave them both up. And not surprisingly, I could feel more. So at this point, it's no sugar, meat, dairy, or eggs. I'm still hanging on to fish. I finally gave up fish. That was hard. Giving up fish was hard. Because I like sword steaks and I like tuna steaks. I don't like little cans. That stuff's nasty. But a big, thick tuna steak, that was so good. And sword steak, and I think sword steaks are illegal. I don't know. But it was really good. I finally gave that up. At that point, I was vegan. I was vegan. And man, I was just on fire with feelings. I could just walk up to anybody and connect up with anybody. And I can still do that today. I can walk up to any human being and just start talking to them. Because I can see how they feel. And I know how I feel, so I've got the tools to do that. That's really enough. Or don't you think that's enough? But I started researching and I started reading that there were carcinogens, things that would cause cancer, in foods that were not organic. And I didn't want to die. I've had people in my family die from things like that. I gave up foods that were not organic because they had carcinogens in them, and I didn't want to die. And you can't see them when you look into it, and you can't taste them. But if you do the research, it's there. So at this point, I'm an organic vegan. And then I have a friend of mine, he was watching me do all this crazy stuff, and he said, and so he went to a place called the Living Foods Institute and came back and said, Steve, I got some things to tell you. And I said, what? They said, if you cook your food, it takes the enzymes out. If you cook your food, it takes the enzymes out. And the enzymes are things that do several things. They help your digestion, but they also protect your body from various types of illness. And so if you cook anything above 112 degrees Fahrenheit, it destroys the enzymes. So he suggested that I not cook my food. I don't like to cook. I cooked professionally for 3 years and I just got really burnt out. So this sounded like a really pleasant idea because it's easy. And so I did it. And I could feel more. So at this point, I'm a raw, organic vegan. And that's what I am today. And I do it not for animal rights, as I've said. I do it because those things, those other foods block my feelings. And I want to love. And I want to be loved. I want to love myself and to love you and to love the universe. And anything that impedes that, I'm willing to let go of because I want healthy love in my life because that's what I believe life is about.